So if we were to test this, we have this here, on myself here. And so we can try with 2 plus 2, and then what will be the input range? A1. And the output range, we can have B1 as well. And if we run that, it works. And we get responses written successfully. So now let's do another test, but now with the other model. But let's make it longer. So 3 plus 3, and then we can have 10 times, I don't know, 10 times 9. And then if we delete this, what would be the range? We can have it A1 to A3, and then writes from B1 to B3. Yeah, and let's try this other model for mini. So you can see that it works. So what's up, guys? I'm going to explain today how to create this GPT assistant. As you can see here, is in the sidebar in Google Sheets, and here I added 3 options. You can select between 2 models, OA4O or GPT-4o mini, and then we have 2 more options here. One is to select the input range. I was doing some tests here, so for example, we can select from A1 to A3. So that's what we're gonna do here, so you can see that it works. A1 to A3, and then we have here where do we want the responses to be written. So for example, here will be B1 B3, and if we select, for example, GPT-4o and we run the GPT, you can see that it returns the responses. And then let's see when I use this one, GPT mini, you can see that it works. Actually, it seems like GPT-4o mini is more exact. For example, here I wrote that I wanted only the final response, but the other one didn't work that well. Anyways, so this is what we're going to do today. And as you can see, we also have this button here in the sidebar, in the ribbon, so we can open the sidebar like this. So this is what we're going to create today. I'm going to explain you here some things that I wrote. Yeah, so I created this document, and here I have step by step that what we need to do. But before we do that, we need to go to OpenAI and get the API keys. So I'm going to share with you guys this URL. Pretty much is platform.openai.com/settings/organization/API keys. And here, what you can do is that you can create the API key that we need. We need this, the secret. So once we have the API key, the secret key, we need to create 2 things, main 2 things. Like the first one is the HTML, which is this part. So we can have the assistant like this. And then we also need to create 3 functions. This is subscript code. And here what we need to do is, the first one is gonna be called onOpen. And this one is for this button here in the ribbon. So we need this, so every time that the sheet is open, it loads this button here. So that would be the first option, the first function that we need to do. Then we need to create another function, which we can call show sidebar, and this one the function will be like when you click here, we'll open the sidebar. That will be the idea of that function. And then we have the last function will be like fetch GPT, and this one will be like every time that we interact with this, when we run GPT here, this function is going to be called, and then it's going to fetch the responses. So that's pretty much what we need. Yeah, so I'm going to start from scratch. So we need to create a sheet here. So new sheet, new. Then here, go to extensions, and then AppScript. And in AppScript, let me move this here. So here in AppScript, we can give it a name, this. So just GPT live demo here, and same here. So that would be the first part, is to set up AppScript, and then we're going to create the HTML as I mentioned. So first we can click here, HTML, and we can call it index, and we get this already created for us. So we need to we can delete the base here, and then the head we can add the title like that. Then in title we can call it GPT assistant, and yeah, that's it. With that we have like the title of the in the sidebar. Remember, like I showed GPT assistant, and then we have the styles, but I think the styles we can add them at the end. So let's start with the body, which is the most important part here. So in the body we need the H2 here, and H2, let's close it. And then here in H2 we need to add also a name. So we will call it the same GPT assistant. So you can see here, this is for the first part, this one here, the head, and then the body will be this one here. So that's the idea of this. So GPT assistant here, Yes. And then we're going to add a form so we can input the details that we need, like selecting the model and the input range and the output range, right? So form, let's add this form here and we can give it an ID. An ID will be GPT form, and then we should close it, right? So let's close it, form like that. Okay. And then here under form, we add a level, which is like we can add first level would be for model. This is to select the model. We close it here. Then let's close it here. Yeah. And then we input select model. And then we can have a select, which will give the options to the user to select which model he wants to use. So in this case, we can give it an ID model. Then let's close. I always forget to close this. So yeah, like that. And then here we can have like option, and then we can have the two options that we need. So let's just start with the first one here, close it, then let's replicate this. Yeah, so in the first option, we can give it a value of GPT for O. Then for the second one, we can give it a value of GPT, right? Same, but mini, right? And then we here give the name GPT like that, but let's make it capital here. Okay. Actually, let's make it all GPT like that. And then here, same GPT mini. Yeah, so we have two options here, GPT-4o and GPT-4o mini. So now we need to add, without we finish the first part of the form, remember we had three forms. The first one is select the model, the second one is select the input range, and the second one is select the output range. So here we can we can add another label, which will be for the second part of the form, which is input the range, the input range, right? Label. So we have label. This one. Let's close it. And then here we have it like for input range. Is how it will be called. And then here input range will be the name, and then we can add like some examples to the user so he doesn't get lost. So for example, we can have like, for example, input A1 to A10, like that, right? Yeah, so that will be the input range, and then we need to add the actual input, right? So where he can input the details. So input, so it's input. This input will be the type text, and then we can give it an ID will be input range. Then we can have a placeholder, which is placeholder, enter input range, like that. So this is for the first input range, and then we pretty much do the same for the output range, right? So we could have it like this, but we only change output range. And then we have here this lowercase output range. Here's uppercase output range out. Then we here example, we'll select B1 to B10, and then the input is pretty much the same text. Here the ID changes, so we could use this one, and the placeholder enter range. So this is for the output range, and then we need to add the last part of the form, which will be the submit button, right? So we can add a button here, button, then we close it so I don't forget. But so we can, what's the type? Button. Wait, let me just before type button, and then one click. This is for running the function, right? And then the function will be name run GPT. We haven't created the function but that will be the name. And then here we can write run GPT, and that's the text that will be inside the button. So with that, we already have the form. So just as a quick recap, here we have the head of the form, which will be GPT Assistant. And then we have here the title of the form, which will be the same, GPT Assistant. And then we have here the two models that we can select from. So one will be GPT-4o and the other one will be GPT-4o mini. And then this will be the label and the input for the input range, and this will be the label and the input for the output range. And then we have here the on-click button for the actual button, right? So with that, we have the HTML, this first part of the HTML. So now we need to add the script part and styles. But let's have styles at the end. Actually, let's add something else here. So we can add like something for the results when the script is run, so it returns if it was successful or something happened. So we can add a div below the form, below the button. So we have a div here, and then we can add an ID, and we can have a, actually let me close the div. Otherwise I will forget. I always forget to close this when I'm doing this HTML. So here within the div, we can add ID result, and then we can have a style. In this case, we can add the style. So a style, and we can have like a margin of, actually the style, like that. We can have like a margin top to 20, like that, 20 pixels, and then we can have a font weight like that, and we can have that bold, yeah. Sweet. Yeah, so that will be the actual result. Okay, so with that we already have the first part of the form. Now we need to add the script itself. So let's add script here, and then let's close it. I always forget to close this, so that's why I try to do it right away. And then we need to add the function, right? So this function that I was mentioning here, this is the one that we're going to create. So function from GPT, and then like that. And then here we need to select three things. The first, the model, then what will be the input range, and then what will be the output range, right? So let's have a const here, which will be the model. And then here we select document, get element by ID, which will be this one here. Sorry, this one here, the model. So model, then we get the value. And then here, actually, we got another one, const. And then here we have the input range. And then here we will do the same, document get element by ID. And then here will be the ID input range, this one here, and then also get the value. So here we need to do the same, but this one will be for the output range. So output range, then here document get element by ID, and here will be output range, this one here, output range. Yeah, we will get the value as well. So here we can add like a check, because maybe the user might forget to fill one of those. So we can remind the user to either select one of the models, input something as a range for the input, or input something as a range for the output. So here we can have if, then here if there is no model, or there's nothing as input range in range, or there is nothing as output range, then what happens? So then we're gonna let the user know that here in the result part, meaning like below the button, is gonna say something. So in this case, result is gonna say inner text, say something like please fill all field, like that. Yeah, result inner text, please fill all fields, and then return. Can return that. Wait, we can have like this, return, and that will finish the function. Yeah, so that's it for the first part, and now we need to run the actual function, which will fetch the data from ChatGPT, right? So the way you run it from the HTML, let me put some space here so you guys can see. So yeah, now the way we do it to call a function from HTML is use this script run, and then here we can have one. What will happen if it is successful? What will happen if there's an error? And then call the actual function. So the way you do it is like with success handler. Then here the actual response. We create this like that. And then here we have if response is a success, then we return something, right? So get element by ID. We add the result here, and then we add inner text is equal to response message. So whatever returns, right? So that will be if there is a success, and then we can have what will happen if there is a failure. With failure handler, same error, there is an error, and then here will return something as well. So get element by ID results, and then here inner text, then you will return an error. And then here we have it like this, and we will return the error message. Okay, so that's pretty much that part. And then here we're going to call the function fetch GPT responses. I haven't written the function yet, but that's going to be the name. So it will be fetch GPT responses, like that. And then we can have like something like this, and we will pass the model, the input range. You will have these arguments, and then you will have the output range as argument. So as a quick walkthrough, we have here the function called runGPT, which the first part is going to take the details from that we input in the sidebar, and then it's going to pass those details to this function called fetch GPT responses, which we're going to create in a few minutes. It's going to pass these three arguments that we need. The model will be the input range and the output range, and then it's going to return the results. So this is pretty much the HTML. We need to add the styles, which we're going to add now. So now we need to add the styles, so we can have the styles after title. So we can have a style, and then we close it. Let's close it, style, like that. And then we add one for the body. So we have a font family of Arial, otherwise sans serif, yeah, like that. And then we add a padding of 10 pixels, yeah. Then we add another one for label. And here we have display, block, and then we have margin, bottom 5px, and then we have a font weight, bold, like that. And then we have another one here, one for input, select button, and here we have a margin, bottom of 15 pixels. Here we have width 100%, like that. And then we have a padding of 8 pixels, like that. So that's it for the styles. With that, we finished HTML. So now we go to Code.js, and now here we're going to write 3 functions I mentioned in the beginning. One is going to be when we refresh the sheet, every time that we open the sheet. Here in the ribbon is going to appear a button so we can open the sidebar. So we need that function first. So let's do it. So before we do that, let me add here the API key. So this is going to be from OpenAI. So just to have it handy there. So yeah, so the function is going to be function, and then on open, like that, const UI spreadsheet get UI. So this create the button. And then here UI a menu. We need a menu first, and we can call it like GPT sidebar. Then below that we can add an item, and then we have here open GPT sidebar. And then here, so this was the name, and then what will be the name of the function here? So we will call it show sidebar. I'm going to create this function afterwards, like that. And then we add that to the UI. So with that, we should be able to see the button. If we do that test here, a quick test, we can refresh this. Let's see. Okay, it didn't work. Let's see what happened. Oh yeah, here. But this needs to be a function. So now if we refresh this, let's try again. Yeah, so you can see it here. This is what we needed. So now let's create the sidebar. So you open the sidebar function, show sidebar, and then we have here a const, which will be the HTML. Here HTML service, HTML output from file, and here we have index. Then here below we need to add the name. It's the title. That's the title. Then we call it GPT assistant. That's the name, assistant. And then here we got spreadsheet, get UI, and again don't forget that, and then show sidebar, and we pass the HTML like that. So with that, we should be able to see the sidebar. Let's see. Okay, we need to give access. So you can see this is the sidebar. So it's working correctly. We have here the 2 options, GPT-4o, and GPT-4o mini. And then we have the input range, output range, and runGPT. So that seems to be working correctly. So now we need to add the last part, which is the function that will call to ChatGPT itself. So let me get first the key. So this is the key here, API key. Okay, so I don't forget. Okay, so now so now let's add the last function that we need to add, which is as I mentioned, the name will be this one, fetch GPT response. So that's the name that we need here, responses. And then we receive a payload, right? Yeah, so it receives a payload, which is this one, right? While input range and output range. So that's the payload. So this is receiving this payload here. So that's why payload there. So here we need to set up a couple of things before. So it's gonna be API key, C1 to API key. We set up above API. Actually, I don't know why it's not showing this one. API key, and then we have here const. Then we need to set up a sheet, which will be a spreadsheet, get active spreadsheet, and then we have here active graphic sheet. So it's gonna take the current sheet where that's called. In this case, we're calling from sheet number 1, so that's the one that is going to be shown. And now we need to extract what's coming from payload. So we have const, then we have here model, input range, and then output range, output range, and then this comes from payload. And then we can have here a try and catch, just to make sure that nothing breaks. So we can have to try here and then try like that, and then we have a catch. And if there is an error, then something happens, and then I think we can print the error. So if success is false, then message is equal to error, like that. And then we can have here the error message itself. So that will be error message. Yeah, so that will print the error if there are errors. Okay, so now here within the try we can add the call itself. So we need to get the inputs, right? From like here, for example, from the input range. If we select this range, we need to get those inputs. So what we can have is a const called inputs, and then sheet get range, and then that will be the input range that we input here. In this case, the one that is coming from here, input range. Then we get the values, get values, and we need another one for results equal to that. Right, so now we need to make a call for each of the values. So for example, if we select a range of 3, it's gonna make 3 calls, right? So here is for inputs for each of the inputs. We can have something like this, input, and then like that, and then we have like that. And then if there's an input, so we're just making sure that we're taking an input here. So we have a const, which will be the URL that we need, where we need to make the call. So in this case, the URL is https API openai.com/v1/chat/completions. So that's the URL that we're gonna use, the endpoint, and then we have here another const, which will be the request payload. We need to pass some payloads options, and the payload is gonna be, we need the model, which is gonna be model. And here we need messages. So this is just predetermined. We need to add this always. So here we can have role. Then here we have system content. You can change this if you want, but I'm just going to leave it like this. You are a helpful assistant. And then actually here this is a comma. And then here we need to add another one, which role user. Here content is equal to input, which is this that is coming here, right? Then here we need to add something which is max tokens. Now we're gonna use max tokens, and this is gonna be 100. We can have it like this. And then here we have temperature, and here we can set it up like the higher the temperature, the more exact it's gonna be, and the more tokens it's going to use. That's pretty much the logic behind that. So we can have it like this. And with that we have the request payload. So now let's add options like that. So you guys can see. So we have options here, and we have a method. We're making post methods here, and then we have here a content type. It's gonna be application JSON, like that. Then here we have headers, and then here in header we have authorization, and it's gonna be bearer, like that. Make sure that bearer is there. It needs to be there always. Bearer and then we pass the API key, perfect. And then, so we then pass the payload, we pass the request payload. So we pass that as a JSON stringifies like that, the request payload. And then we add this that I like to use just to make sure that if there are errors or something, the error message is shown completely. So mute HTTP exception, but you can remove this if you don't want it. Exceptions like that. It's to be true. And now we need to make the call itself, right? So let's do that. So let's close this. And then we add const response equal to URL fetch. Then here we pass the URL, we pass the options. So when we're making the call here, we can log something in case there's something like an error or something, just to be safe. You can log like response, get content text here, and with that we can see if there are an error or something. We will see that in the logs, and then here, so let's parse that reply, right? That response. So let's add const here, reply, and here we'll have JSON choices, and we take in the first part like that, and then message, and then content, and then we trim that so that doesn't have spaces. And if there are no response, well, no response received like that. Yeah, that's how we parse the reply, and then we add that to the results, right? So we have this one here, so we will push that to that. So let me push like that. Yeah, reply. Okay, so that's how it works. So now let's add an else here. Results push. In case there's something, no inputs provided, we can add. So no input provided like that. So we can close this. And then finally, the only thing that we need to add now is write the results, right? The results to the sheet. So now we need to take the output range and write the results there. So all we can do is just sheet, get range. Then what will be the range? The range is output range, set values, then we pass the results like that. So if everything is fine, we return something just to make sure that everything works successfully. Retrieved, so success is true. We return a message which will be responses written successfully. So we can format this so you can see. Okay, so before we do a test, I was doing some checks and I realized that I forgot to add this line here. So after response, we need to add const and then JSON. So as you can see here, I'm using JSON here and then getting what is inside that JSON. So we need to parse the JSON itself, right? So we get the response, and then we have a const JSON here and the JSON parse, and then we get the response, get content text. And from there we can now continue with reply. So if we were to test this, we have this here on myself here. And so we can try with 2 + 2, and then what will be the input range? A1, and the output range we can have B1 as well. And if we run that, it works. And we get responses written successfully. So now let's do another test, but now with the other model, but let's make it longer. So 3 + 3, and then we can have 10 times, I don't know, 10 times 9. And then if we delete this, what would be the range? We can have it A1 to A3, and then writes from B1 to B3. Yeah, let's try this other model for mini. So you can see that it works. So yeah, that's pretty much how it works, the assistant. If you have any questions or something, you can just write them down in the comments box and I will help you out. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Bye.